What's going on, everybody? GemMint here. It's Wednesday, November 9th, new comic book day, and I don't think I've seen you guys since last new comic book day. If you guys follow the community post, I had some renovations going on in the basement. We got the floors done. Now we're working on painting the walls and getting the shelvings put up so we can finally get the Gempire 2.0 set up. So I wasn't able to record down here, but now I'm back on it, and what a better way to start than new comic book day. Make sure to hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel for the whole new era of GemMint Collectibles, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a video. Before I get into this week's mostly non-spoiler reviews, I'm going live on Whatnot today at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern to do our Whatnot Wednesday Ninja Funk exclusive drop. We have this amazing cover by Jamie Tyndall. We have the masked version and the unmasked version, limited to 750 copies and 500 copies respectively. Make sure to come check me out. If you haven't signed up for Whatnot yet, I've got a link in the description that'll give you a $10 credit that you can use for the first time you make a purchase on there. But enough of all that, let's jump into the reviews. Reading mostly physical books again, but I have a couple of digital. We're gonna start with Dynamite Entertainment, Lord of the Jungle, issue 1. Guys, I didn't even know this was a Tarzan book until the end of the issue, but then I later found out that this is not the first Lord of the Jungle series that Dynamite has published. I thought it was extremely well done, a great jumping on point, a lot of mystique around the origin of Tarzan and kind of looking at it from the human perspective and him growing up in the jungle. Great issue. It makes me want to continue to read this series, so check out Lord of the Jungle. We got a new #1 from Boom Studios and a ton of #1s from the big two as well. But Specs issue #1, David M. Booher along with Chris Sheehan and Roman Stevens. I dug this issue, as the cover and the title allude to. It's all about these friends that find an old comic book and they have the ads in the back for the X-ray specs, right? Well, these are like wishing specs and you can wish anything, and then it kind of gets out of hand as you would expect. And looking at the cover, something happens to a person in this book because of those specs. So I dug issue 1 of Specs. Then moving on to Image, we have Dark Ride, issue #2, Joshua Williamson along with Breeson and Lucas. Great series. I loved issue 1. Issue 2 is strong. You have this son trying to run this theme park that nobody really knows is kind of haunted by the devil or influenced by the devil, or it exists because of the devil. They just think it's a horror park, but he's trying to branch out, do animated cartoons. It's not really going over well. Everybody just wants to know where the father's at. They really want to hear from him and not really from the son. He's got an influencer sister who's trying to help, but they always kind of butt heads. And then you have these supernatural elements starting to affect his daughter, the son's daughter, the granddaughter of the theme park owner. I can't put my finger on how I want to describe. Possessed theme park might be the best way for it. I kind of like how the mascots, you have human mascots, but then they kind of allude to like some of those mascots might not be human. It's a good series. Moving on to Seven Sons, we're on issue 6. Robert Wyndham and Kelvin Mao, Jay Lee on the art, and June Chung. So you got to have already been into this series. I mean, it's issue 6 already. We're dealing with the 7 reincarnations of Jesus Christ, having to deal with cloning. They're all kind of getting killed off, being portrayed as martyrs. There's a lot of big corporation stuff going on that's pulling the strings on this here, and it seems like the truth will be revealed to the public soon. You know, I've been digging this series, sticking along with it. I suggest you go, find issue 1 and try to catch up. I took a look at Kaya issue 2. This is by Wes Craig with Wordy and World. So I like the art style. It's a very easy flow type of story. It's this human girl that's running around with the lizard people and kind of the politics that surround that, almost like a Romeo and Juliet kind of thing happening. I'm not really into it, though. I mean, it's well done. It's just not really for me, so I'm probably not going to continue reading this one. And the last one from Image, we have Two Graves, issue #1, another #1 by Valentine, Doyle, Wu, and Low Ridge. I like this. It's got a nice art style to it, dealing with heaven and hell stuff. You have this girl kind of trucking it along with the personification of death and going on death's missions to, kill people or whatever death does. I dug it. The cover's dope. That happens in the book as well. It's not a bait and switch. I thought it was a strong #1. Wait, we got one more from Image. Doer Powerbomb, issue 6. Daniel Warren Johnson and Mike Spicer. Man, this almost got Gem of the Week. One of the strongest, most fun series that I've been reading this whole year. Not even a big wrestling fan. It's a wrestling-driven book. The action sequences are amazing. They have big stakes. They are called to this intergalactic type of wrestling organization, and they're fighting to resurrect her mother, and what she doesn't know is her partner's wife. It's actually her dad. I don't know how she doesn't know that, but there's big stakes here. The people they're fighting have big stakes as well, and it's really touching, man, especially this issue, because there's only one more issue left to round out this 7-issue miniseries. Which is going to bring us on over to Marvel Comics. We've got Moon Knight issue 17, Jed MacKay, along with Cappuccio and Rosenberg. Amazing artwork in this series. It really gives me Bill Sienkiewicz vibes, even though it's not as painty as his, but amazing artwork in this series. Moon Knight is intimidating these two vampire mercenaries who think they've killed Hunter's Moon, and they're not afraid of Moon Knight, so he's got to give them a reason to be afraid. Amazing issue, kind of fast-paced, read really quick, but really dope. The series has been great so far altogether. Then we have Sabretooth and the Exiles, issue 1 by Lavalle, Kirk, and Barreto. It's basically just following the exploits of Sabretooth. I mean, he had his own little series. I don't know why it got rebranded, but he went from the frying pan into the fryer. He was cast away, exiled on Krakoa, and then he got captured by the Orcus. So now we're following the Orcus and how they're experimenting on him to build their own new weapon. They kind of needed his liver and the healing abilities there. And then it kind of feels like, it really feels like Sabretooth mixed with Hellions. It's like the Hellion squad of Nanny and Orphan Maker and those guys mixing and mingling with what was going on with Sabretooth and his exile. So it was okay. I mean, nothing to write home about, but I enjoyed it. Fantastic Four is here with a new issue number 1. This is a variant. I didn't find the cover A, but this is by North, Coelho, and Carmagna. So it's kind of a bait and switch. It's called Fantastic Four number 1. It's really a Ben Grimm and Alicia story, but the story was kind of touching. They kind of get caught up in this Groundhog Day time loop of a town, and they have to try to figure out how to stop them, and it's a love story at the end of the day. It references something that happened in the last Fantastic Four run by Dan Slott, which I missed. I didn't read any of that, or I might have tried and never got into it. So besides that, I mean, it was a pretty good issue. I hope they kind of bring it along to a whole Fantastic Four series, but it wasn't really the case with issue number 1. Got another number 1 here, Spider-Man The Lost Hunt. So it's a Craven story by D. Mateus, Messias, Barbo, Peter, and Menyon. We have 3 Spider-Man books this week, and this was the strongest one. It's kind of like an Elseworlds tale. We're in this world where Peter Parker has lost his powers. He is with Mary Jane, and she's pregnant, but he keeps getting visited by these nightmares of this spider totem, and we find a new character, a first appearance, if this is going to become continuity, who's been pulling the strings, kind of doing like Craven / Callisto type of tactics on him to kind of scare him and get in his mind and get in his psyche to hunt the spider kind of thing. It was dark. It kind of gave Craven Last Hunt vibes. Speaking of which, this is the variant for Amazing Spider-Man issue 14 or 13. They didn't have the A cover, which is what I usually go for. This is by John Romita Jr. and Zeb Wells, so we're continuing that. The art style is not good. We're continuing that Hobgoblin story. It kind of gets resolved here a little bit. It's really going back and forth between Spider-Man and Norman Osborn. They're working together, but there's always these glimpses of Norman. Is he good? Is he bad? Is he going to stay good? He's always building gliders and costumes and things of that nature. It's not really a good series. And then we have Spider-Man issue number 2 by Dan Slott. He's joined by Bagley, Dell, and Delgado. So you got a strong team, but I just can't figure out why Dan Slott jumped back on Spider-Man, really the title that put him on the map, to do this like mid-Spider-Verse story, man. There are so many spider characters here. It's really ridiculous. It's not enjoyable. It's basically Spider-Verse, but Moreland is on the good guy's side because there's something that was preying on his family that, if you guys read Spider-Geddon, which I skipped out on, I guess all of those kind of Morelands got changed back into babies or whatever. So there's this new kind of Wasp type of villain out there. Again, I feel like Dan Slott, like, you're tarnishing your Spider-Man legacy here by jumping on this. And it's called End of the Spider-Verse. I feel like the first issue didn't say anything about that. Like, it wasn't really sold as a Spider-Verse book, but I could be wrong. Then we got a new Black Panther number 1, but I'm guessing it's just a one-shot. This is by Hill, Fauché, and Milla. Super fast read. It feels like the Black Panther movie, like they might be setting up the movie. A lot of action scenes with very little dialogue. We'll give you some idea here. Some cool stuff here, kind of giving Moon Knight vibes with dealing with these weapons from the gods and going up against this villain that has a certain weapon. And I don't really understand what the point of this was, because they still have that ongoing by John Ridley, and they have a Wakanda ongoing right now as well. So I'm not really sure what the point of this book was, but I mean, it was okay. Quick read. Moving on to Ghost Rider, issue number 8. This is by Percy Smith Jr. and Valenza. This almost got Gem of the Week. It would have gotten my pick of the week had it had more to it, if it was a longer issue, because the art style in this book is truly unique. It really reminds me of like Alan Moore's Swamp Thing, like the way they go all out. It's the most horror book I think that's out on the stands right now. If I try to think of it, up there with Silver Coin, but it's a Marvel book. Ghost Rider, or I should say Johnny Blaze, working with this woman, and check this artwork out here. They're on the highway to hell, almost literally, and they get ambushed by these zombified animals, kind of just meat and bones. Great issue. Really digging the Ghost Rider stuff here. And then we are moving on to Venom in Space. Issue number 3 by Al Ewing, Hitch, Curry, and Sinclair. You know, it kind of makes sense that we're dealing with Venom in space, because this symbiote, the Clintar, are aliens, right? So we're dealing with the whole kind of multiple Eddie Brocks throughout timelines. He's the King in Black, so time is not linear. It's kind of, you can be all places at once. He can travel into other symbiotes and kind of get out of this Garden of Eden or wherever the hell he's at, trying to get back to Dylan Brock. And the last issue, we saw Bedlam, kind of the final version of Eddie Brock's Venom in this King in Black series, seemingly killed Dylan, but if you guys have read that issue, it actually turns him into something else, and they expound on that a little bit more in this issue. I'm sticking with it. You know, it's not my favorite Venom run. I liked Donny Cates' run a lot more, but, you know, it's okay. It's entertaining. I haven't dropped it. Then we're on to Wolverine, issue number 27. It's also a variant cover, which is why it's nothing to do with the story here. Benjamin Percy, along with Juan Jose Rip and Frank D. Armada. So picking up where we left off, kind of, with that whole Beast story where Wolverine's body parts are getting auctioned to the black web or whatever, and they're cutting off his ear and selling it like Van Gogh style. But it's also going back to of resurrecting Wolverine. I guess this is basically what I've been saying since Hoxpox. Something is not right with Beast. I think they teased it, and everybody keeps telling me I'm crazy. They teased the fact that Beast this whole time was really the Dark Beast from Age of Apocalypse. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they're finally showing Beast's true colors here and how he betrays Wolverine in this issue. I'm giving too much. It was okay. Not the best series, but I will check it out. Haven't dropped it yet for 27 issues. It doesn't even feel like the same run. Anyway, all right, we have the epilogue for Axe Judgment Day. This is by, of course, Kieran Gillen, who wrote his ass off for this. Guy Villanova, and I don't know, the names are covered up here. So it's basically the aftermath of Axe Judgment Day, which leaves us with Cersei as the new celestial god. That was kind of the trade-off. That's how, you know, spoiler alert, we prevented the progenitor celestial from judging the machine that is Earth. Not really necessary. Kind of showing how the Eternals and the humans are going to coexist with each other after finding out that when the Eternals die, they have to inhabit a human body, essentially killing that person in order to come back. So now that that's all out in the open, where do we go from here is kind of what this issue is. So I thought it was all right. On to DC Comics, y'all. We have Dark Crisis on Infinite Earths, issue 6 of 7. Joshua Williamson, Samperi, and Sanchez. So you see this cover? That's what we're getting in this issue. Big, bombastic, superhero battles. Kind of the end of this, right? It's issue 6. There's one more issue, but just a lot of battles trying to stop Pariah and the true great darkness and all these infinite Earths that have arisen. The heroes rejected those fake Earths that Pariah created for them to kind of take them off the board. And now they're just dealing with the remnants of the Dark Army and Deathstroke, who is like hulked out now, and I guess going to be the last final bout of this little mini series. I always get super confused with these Crisis events. I mean, I've read them all: Crisis on Infinite Earths, Final Crisis, Infinite Crisis, but it's always just so big that I just have a hard time wrapping my mind around it, reading it, you know, monthly. So maybe, you know, if I do a reread on an absolute edition or something, it'll be a little bit more crisp to me. Then we got Batman and Robin, or Batman vs. Robin, issue 3. Mark Waid, Asrar, Godlewski, and Belair. Pretty cool issue. So we know that the devil Nezra has possessed everybody. So now it's Batman having to go up against all these Robins, which is already tough for him, but like they're really hitting him with how they really feel on how he treated each and every one of them. I mean, they all kind of had falling outs at one point in time, right? So Batman figuring that out. The stuff with Alfred, which we all knew was going to happen, comes to a head here as well. It was okay. Nice little Batman issue for a light Batman week for DC. We'll switch on over to Black Label for Nice House on the Lake, issue 11. So this should be the penultimate issue. James Tynion IV, Alvaro Martinez Bueno, and Jordi Belair. This used to be one of my favorite series. I feel like it should have been an 8-issue mini, man. I think 12 issues was like 4 too much. We kind of know what Walter is, and we know what his and his people's plans were, and how it's all getting messed up and ruined now. Everybody in the house has learned his true nature and what this has all been about. So we just got to see how it ends next issue. Might read good on a complete read through of all 12 issues, but kind of started losing me. It was getting pick of the week. I think the first 6 issues, every week they came out, got pick of the week, but really lost its luster after that hiatus. The Flash is here with the final issue from their 3-issue miniseries, The Fastest Man Alive, Porter and Howard. And man, 2 strong issues, and then it kind of landed on a dud with this terrible villain, the Top, who's got this top power where he could spin, and then he puts these top things in throughout the city that can destroy the city. But it is a nice kind of look at how they plan to handle the Ezra Miller Flash movie, if that ever comes out, on this kind of new version of Flash, learning his powers, figuring out he can do the what is that when he like vibrates and leaves an image of himself? I forget the term that's used. So, you know, he's always had that power in the comics, him figuring it out in this universe. The touching stuff with him and his father, it was a little campy for me. Didn't really like it, but it was a pretty good little 3-issue series. Started really strong and then just kind of ended with a dud. Got Batman Incorporated issue number 2 by Ed Brisson, Timms, and Locust. A lot of characters that I don't care about, except for Ghost Maker and Clown Hunter. I kind of like that whole thing. And the whole tying it in with Batman the Knight. Did we know this whole time that Ghost Maker was Anton? Is that a spoiler? Because I feel like it's a little bit familiar, and I like how it ties in with that, because we essentially got a dope-ass origin story for Ghostmaker within Zdarsky's Batman the Knight. So I like how that tied in together. What are they doing? Busting bunkers? It was kind of like, what's the main plot here? Wasn't really clear. Then we have another number 1. It's a one-shot. It's the New Golden Age. This is by Jeff John and a ton of artists. He's joined by Lieber, Olor Tegu, Ordway, Nock, Meyer, Boyd, Filardi, Khalees, and Herms. So I didn't really love this as much as I wanted to love it. Jeff Johns loves the Justice Society of America, and he keeps wanting to bring them back. I mean, I think he's got an ongoing that's going to start next year. We're dealing with time here, a lot of time displacement. We get this future with Batman and Catwoman having a daughter, and the daughter finding out that he's Batman for the first time. And funny enough, I just got done reading the Doomsday Clock Absolute. I'm planning on filming the review of that tomorrow. This is like a direct follow-up to that. It ties in with the, what's her name? The mime and his wife. I can't remember her name. But coming full circle with that. Because if you remember how Doomsday Clock ends, their kid was infused with the powers of Dr. Manhattan. So kind of leaving it open for a new story here. Another number 1 here, we have Wildcats issue number 1. This is by Rosenberg, Segovia, and Santos. I wasn't a big Wildcats guy growing up. That was Jim Lee's big Image book with all those guys debuting their books, whether it was Wildcats, you had Youngblood, Spawn, Savage Dragon. Anyway, I think it was kind of a dull issue except for all of the Cole Cash stuff. He has a really fun personality, and I like him a lot, but I just feel like the overall story was another, like, what are they doing? Busting bunkers. It's like not exciting. It was kind of boring, which is going to bring us to the gem of the week. But before we get into it, this video is brought to you by Ninja Funk. Issue 1 comes out on November 2nd. They hit over 105,000 pre-orders. Be on the lookout for issue 2 that drops on December 14th with this beautiful David Nakayama cover. Shout out to Ninja Funk and Whatnot Publishing. All right, guys, I had to do it. The Death of Superman 30th Anniversary Special. It's an $11 book. It's got this nice wraparound hard stock cover here. And I can't believe it's been 30 years. So that means I was 8 years old when I got into comics, because The Death of Superman was the first comic that I really remember reading. And I'm 38 years old. It came out 30 years ago, so I was 8. So this has a couple of short stories, the main story being a new kind of Doomsday. It's a first appearance of the Doombreaker and a young Jonathan Kent learning about his father dying, I guess 30 years ago in comic years, at the hands of Doomsday. So you have a young Jonathan Kent, you have this new Doomsday foe. It's kind of a self-contained short story, which I thought was pretty good. It was pretty interesting. It was up my alley. And then you had some short stories telling the perspective of others during the death of Superman. So you had a Ma and Pa Kent story, you had a Guardian story, and you had a John Henry Irons Steel story. Hit me right in the nostalgia. I don't know if that's the reason why it's the gem of the week. I mean, if it was somebody else doing this video, this might not have even gotten a look. It's an expensive book. They have a lot of variants. They have a polybag version, but for me, it was worth it. I enjoyed the stories, and yeah, I guess that's all I got to say about that, man. Let me know what your favorite comics were. What was your pick of the week or your gem of the week? Leave it down in the comments down below. Catch me later on Whatnot. We'll be live for an hour. We'll be chilling. We're going to do our exclusive Whatnot Wednesday Ninja Funk drop. So catch you guys later, man. Stay minty fresh. Peace.